let's get into Andor because that's more fresh.
I was gonna say I finished watching Andor 20 minutes, actually, like literally 10 minutes before we started recording this. Is when I watched the episode 4 last night before I left because I had some time. I actually watched Last of Us and Andor back to back before I went to go see my second showing of Thunderbolts last night, and then I watched the other 2 episodes of Andor this morning back to back. So yes, they are
Right.
fresher in my mind.
Right.
But
Um.
let
Well,
me hear your thoughts first.
yeah. Look, I said in my 3-minute review, there's nothing wrong with this season. There's nothing wrong with this 3 set of episodes. I just feel, uh, uh, um, I just feel like we're building to something, and because we're technically halfway through the show now. I'm
Mm-hmm.
I kind of really want to start seeing the results of what we're building towards. We haven't really seen much of that yet. Um, but even though we haven't, that's literally my only complaint with these 3 episodes is just I wish we would have seen more of the build so we can see where the story's actually going, and it's not just a
I
year in
mean,
Cassian Andor's life. I wish we would have gotten a
I
little more, and we are to a certain extent, but we're not getting like the full picture, which I think we at this point as the audience should technically have. Um,
I think we do, personally. I think we do have the full picture of what this is going to look like. And I just gotta say, I called it last week. The whole crux of the big like end battle is going to be Dedra on Gorman and Andor. They're
oh
building
yeah.
up what Gorman is. They're building up the concept, and I think it is a masterful thing.
Oh,
I
genuinely.
love these 3 episodes. The acting of the characters is phenomenal. Um, I will say the weakest part for me was, and maybe you're gonna disagree with me on this. I think the weakest part for me was the Saw Gerrera stuff.
Yeah.
I just
It was
like
good. It just was weak.
it was good. It felt it didn't feel like it was building like to me, even though everything from the last week's 3 episodes felt a little disconnected, you could see the plot thread showing itself through everything. You could see
Yeah.
why we were telling all these stories, and we see what the purpose of why we're seeing Mon Mothma and Andor and Bix and
Right.
all these
Right.
different perspectives, Cyril and Dedra.
Correct. Correct.
This, you have the same, in fact, they're more tied together. All of them except for Saul Guerrera's. I feel like it was kind of an unnecessary. And again, I am more than willing to be proven wrong. I am almost positive we're going to get more Saul Guerrera in the next 3 episode drop, just because there's no way this is the only time. Maybe it's because of the storyline with Will and how Saul Guerrera is corrupting Will to be
Sure.
more of that guerrilla warfare style of, because that's the whole thing with Saul Guerrera's character is he believes in the rebellion concept, but he is much more brutalistic. He's much more guerrilla warfare than the
Sure.
playing behind the scenes strategic. He's more, I will brutally murder and torture and capture whoever. He literally shoots one of the spies point blank in the head without any remorse. Like, he is
Right.
brutal in his fight for rebellion. That's been
Well,
Saul
and
Guerrera's storyline in we've seen him a lot of different places, both old and young.
sure. Well, and honestly, that's the reason that this show is still probably the best thing Star Wars has ever done, and why season 2, I would still argue, is very masterful. It's just slower. It's a slower burn than the first season, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I it deals with the constant theme of humanity and what side of humanity we should be on.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where Saul Guerrera's character really has to kind of come into play here, is because we're seeing one aspect of it with Luthen and Mon Mothma's side, and then we see we see Saul Guerrera's side. Both sides in some way have a very messy, willing to kind of cross the line in some regards, but Saul
Yeah.
Guerrera specifically, like you said, guerrilla warfare. Good God. Um, and I love that that's the constant theme of this show, and again, it shows the adult, mature side of Star Wars that we just have
Mm-hmm.
never seen. And it's funny because before we got on this podcast, we talked. I gave you a phone call because there's some comments coming in on our shorts, on our videos on TikTok, and one of them was like, for both Last of Us and Andor, both technically started arguments of people. And for Andor specifically, because it's a very political show, started this whole argument where people were just like, what? Of course, this guy's praising the show. And then another person like is retaliating back, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Yes, that. I'm like, what the heck, people?
I
Guys, it's
mean,
just an Andor
it's
review. It's
it,
not that
it
it's not that deep.
I mean, it is and it isn't, because this is telling a very, like you said, it's telling the human side of Star Wars. This right now, what we're watching is very reminiscent of what was happening during like the Cold War period. It's the spies, it's the
Right.
espionage, it's the strike strategically. If you my eyes were a little all over the place because I was just looking up the IMDb because I wanted to shout someone out, Kyle Solar.
I
Kyle
could tell.
Solar,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, is the actor for Cyril. I
Yeah.
think he he was my standout for these 3 episodes. Personally, he did a phenomenal job with his acting, because
Yeah.
here's the thing.
Yeah.
For about half of the episode, he gets shipped off to Gorman. The whole story is that Dedra and him have broken up, and he got demoted, and he's been sent to Gorman to live
Right.
out the rest of his life counting spiders, essentially.
Right.
And there's that question of how true is this? Like, where is this going? And then they start sowing the seeds of doubt. And it's like, oh, well, Cyril might actually like his mom makes a comment when he's on the phone with her of don't become too much of an individual. And you're like, ooh, is Cyril gonna like, is he becoming too much of an individual? Is he like starting to have
Yeah.
doubts, whatever? It's
Yeah.
revealed later on that he was actually a spy for Dedra, and he's actually on Gorman specifically to plant those seeds of doubt that Dedra had talked about in the last 3 episode drop of, oh, how do you, because if you don't know, the whole plan that they're putting together, at least from my perspective, is essentially they want to gain full control over Gorman. They want to be able to
Right.
put down as much of a boot as possible. And the reason why Dedra's idea is we need to have insurgents is because the best way to crack down on security is to have a reason. And that reason
Right.
is going to be the rebellion that starts on Gorman. And Cyril is
Right.
the one that's sowing those doubts. And he did such an excellent job that I started to believe that he was having doubts. I was like, oh, is Cyril going
Sure.
to be a flip? Is he going to flip? And then skip to they're in the briefing room with him, Dedra, and I'm forgetting the it's not Krennic. Who's the other one? The other Imperial guy that's like the head of the
Uh,
council. I'm
I know
forgetting his name.
it's he plays Qyburn in Game of Thrones. I don't know what his name is though, but I know exactly who
Yeah,
you're
but
talking about.
they're in the briefing room together, and he leaves, and Cyril and Dedra are there, and Cyril was like, "This is the best day of my life," and that's when it clicked of like, "Oh no, Cyril is fully acting. There is no sense of remorse. There is no sense of care for these people whatsoever. He is not
Yep.
gonna flip. He's not gonna. He is in this." For the Empire. He is fully tatted for the Empire. And that's where
Right.
it's like, oh shit, he did such an excellent job of acting this that I started to believe that he is, even though, even once they revealed he was a spy, because they revealed he was a spy earlier on, I was still like, his facial, like, I guess, like, acting was still portraying some doubt. I was like, oh, are they like planting the seed that he's spying for Dedra, but he's not? And then he makes that comment. I was like, no, he is fully in the Empire. And I was like, God, he did such a fantastic job
Well,
with
and
this.
and 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 that's honestly because again, you keep going back to the spy espionage style of story that this is. Like, why do people have to get upset about that? What is wrong with that type of a story? Again, like I got called out in a comment. I'm like, what? Why does this matter? This is
Well,
really good
again,
writing and a really good story. I'm just so
They're
confused.
talking more about I think the reason they're getting more upset, and I don't wanna get too hung up on this,
No,
they're
no, no, I don't
it's the
either.
whole because last week's story was the immigration one with the illegal immigrants and things like that and the undocumented workers.
Fair enough. Fair
That's
enough.
more of a politically charged conversation than what we're seeing now. I don't
Yeah,
think
fair enough.
that yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with the espionage or the spy or Cold War. I think it has more to do with that, but, um I will say again, I think Andor's story in this was a lot stronger than it was.
Yes.
I don't know. I still think I liked Cyril's story better. Like
I
I
agree with that.
enjoyed Cassian. I felt we got way more of him obviously and there were a lot of scenes where I loved him in like when he was playing the fashion designer on Gorman and
Yeah.
when he was doing his evaluation, but I don't know. I think it's a problem of they're not giving him the interesting plot line in this. The interesting plot line is Cyril and Dedra on Gorman in this rebellion, and that's
Yeah.
what's interesting.
Well, and
Andor is trying to balance and I guess this is where it does get interesting because Andor is trying to balance his part in the rebellion and his responsibility to Bix, who is
sure.
losing herself because of A, she was almost raped last episode, but B, if you remember from the first season, she was tortured by the doctor that in the end of this episode was and I honestly,
Yeah.
I really did not like the way this episode ended. I felt like it was very, very abrupt that they just killed the doctor. So, like, he was, if I remember correctly, and you watched this more recently than I did, the doctor with Bix was a bigger plot line last season. Like, that's one of the reasons why
Yes.
she's so screwed up. I
Yeah.
don't like how unceremoniously they just, oh, she gets in so easily. She breaks into this Empire place that's supposed to be this big, like, lockdown new facility of the doctor and she just breaks in, straps in the machine, and they blow up the building. I did not like that. I felt it was a very abrupt way to move Bix's story forward because they're trying to get her to move on from her past. I personally did not like that they just did it so abruptly. I don't think they should have dragged it on any longer, but I still feel like to me it was like, oh, well, we just all of a sudden just boom, he's done, end the story. Now, granted, I think that Luthen gave them this mission very deliberately to help Bix move on.
That
I
was
think
the
that's
point.
Luthen's whole point is I need Bix to be in a hole. Like I need her to be whole again to the best of her ability. And the only way to do that is for her to kill her past, essentially, leave her past behind.
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I still feel like it was a little abrupt for me.
It's the
Um,
case of you'd rather it be shown and not told for the most part, and you feel like it was more
yeah.
abrupt because and not saying it wasn't shown, it was, but you have to just kinda, like, go you're literally jumping from this point, and then you jump to this point, but there wasn't, like, any real connecting part, and you didn't really get shown, like, them setting up bombs to blow this place up or setting up, the doctor getting ready to be, murdered by Bix. We really didn't get to see any of
Yeah.
that, and because you spend these
Yeah.
whole 3 episodes focusing on Bix's trauma and uh Bix trying to overcome that trauma, you really wanna relish and savor in that
Yeah.
moment. So
Yeah.
I get
Like
that.
I said, I understand why they did it. I don't have any problem with the fact that they did it. I just would have liked a little bit more of it. Like as like the other plot line, in place of like we do get some Mon Mothma, obviously, but in place of Mon's story in this 3 episode arc, we focus way more on Luthen and the struggles of being essentially at this point, Luthen is the head of the rebellion. He is the
Right.
guy who is with Lonnie and his spy in the Empire, and with Andor and with Bix. He's the one giving orders. He's the one directing everything, putting the puzzle pieces together. And we do get to see a lot of
Sure.
his story of the crushing weight of leading this rebellion and what it takes and the sacrifices you have to make.
Right.
And I really I enjoyed that story. I guess I don't want to say more than Mon's story from last week, but it definitely ties way more directly into the overarching like what's going
Sure.
on than Mon's
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that
but
now leads to the honest question of when is Luthen gonna die and how is he going to
yeah.
die?
Well, Luthen was he not in Rogue One?
Luthen was
I
not in
thought
Rogue
Luthen
One.
wasn't. He wasn't. So he does die.
Luthen was
Okay.
not in Rogue One.
Okay.
Saul
So
Guerrero
we
was in
know
Rogue One.
we know Bix has to die, obviously. We know that's coming. It's probably going to be the
Bix is
last of
dead.
the episodes. It's Bix is dead, unfortunately. That is going to happen. Honestly, I feel like it'd be better for them to kill Bix in these next 3 episodes as opposed to the last 3 episodes. Just because it'll give another year before. Because if memory so we still need to find K2SO. That's the other thing. So I think these next 3 episodes, I'm not saying they need to, but I have an inkling that these next 3 episodes, they're going to kill Bix and have K2SO and Andor meet for the first time, so that then in the last 3 episodes, it can bookend immediately into where we see him in Rogue One. I think
Sure.
that would be the best way for this. For me, what I would enjoy to see the most is these next 3 episodes. You kill off Bix, you have K2SO and Andor meet sometime, maybe at the end of these 3 episodes, whatever it is. Have your year gap, and then have the last 3 episodes of the season be K2SO and Andor are much closer, because obviously in Andor, they didn't just meet. Like, they had known each other for a little while. So we have to get
Yeah.
K2SO pretty soon. And
Yeah.
it's already confirmed that Alan Tudyk is going to be in this as K2SO.
Sure.
Um, so I think next episode, in order to kick off where we see Andor and Rogue One timeline wise, it would make the most sense kill Bix now, and like kill Bix next 3 episodes and have K2SO and Andor meet and move forward from there.
Sure.
Because that's the thing. This show is
So
not afraid of death at all. I mean, we'll talk about
no.
this after you make your point, but I really want to talk about what happened on Gorman and the
Yeah.
brutalistic nature of what starting a rebellion looks like. But what were you gonna say?
I'm not going to be disappointed if Bix is the next 3 episodes. However, I think it makes more sense to put her at the end and have Luthen die within the next 3 episodes, because one of the biggest things that hasn't happened yet is that Mon Mothma has not technically met Cassian yet. And he is a
True.
big part in the story. And Mon Mothma also has to technically be, I don't know, is Mon Mothma ever like, because I actually don't know in like books or if they even say it in Rogue One, is Mon Mothma technically outed to the Empire that she's been working in this rebellion?
That's what I don't remember, to be totally honest with you. I know obviously she has to leave the Empire
At
behind. She
some
has to
point.
leave the Senate
Sure.
behind at some point.
Sure.
I personally think, and this is again total speculation, I think next episode you kill Bix and you kill, or you have K2SO step in. I think last 3 episodes, the death of Luthen propels Mon Mothma into Luthen's position of being the leader of the rebellion. I think that's the story that I would be interested in seeing, and kind of my feeling of where things are going to go. I'm more than willing to be proven wrong, obviously, but
Wow.
I think that next episode you kill Bix and you set off the chain of events that leads to Andor meeting K2SO. Because here's the thing, I don't think Bix and K2 ever met. So my inkling is that Bix has to die before K2SO comes into the picture. So Bix
Sure.
dies, K2SO comes into the picture in the next 3 episodes, and then the last 3 episodes, Luthen dies, and that propels Mon Mothma to leave the Senate and become the leader of the rebellion that we know her to be. Because she's the leader of the rebellion in Rogue One, right? Like, she's already been outed and basically become, I don't necessarily think the face, but she is the leader of the rebellion when we jump to Rogue One.
So I'm the exact opposite. I I think that Luthen has to die in order to kick off the chain of events, in order to get Mon Mothma and Cassian together. Bix and Cassian are now working together. The reason I don't think that they're going to kill Bix off next episode is because Bix is now in this with Cassian. And we need to see at least a year, or we need to see enough of them working together to get the full impact of everything. I do agree with you. I do think K2SO is going to be these next 3 episodes. I think K2SO did meet Bix. I think the whole reason why Cassian sticks I don't know what the full reasoning would be why, but I think the reason K2SO sticks around with Cassian is because K2SO does know Bix, and he does know Cassian inside and out. And so once Cassian loses Bix, K2SO is pretty much all that Cassian has at that point. That in the rebellion. But you get what I
Yeah.
mean. I think it's the opposite. I think Bix dies in the last few episodes,
Okay.
which sets off the chain. Maybe it's like the first of the next 3 episodes, but that's what sets off the chain to lead
So
Cassian to the events of Rogue One, because I think that Luthen is much not to Cassian's story, but is much more of a overarching death that sets off a chain for everybody. It just it has to be him. It also gives more time if Luthen dies in the next 3 episodes to build more with what's his daughter's name again? Clea? Is it Clea or is
that's
it
not his. I thought that wasn't his daughter. I thought that was
not his
just an
daughter,
assistant. Is
an
she?
assistant?
Yeah, she's just like an assistant. Yeah,
Okay. Well, it gives more
I'm
time
trying to
with
remember her name.
I don't remember if it's his daughter or not. It probably is just his assistant.
I'm
But
pretty sure it's not his
it
daughter. I'm
gives more
almost
time with
positive it's not.
it it gives more time with Clea to not just mourn Luthen, but for her to logically, um, step into that role and avenge Luthen over the course of like there's so many things you could speculate about.
Speculate.
Um,
Yeah.
speculize. God, I'm fucking stupid. Uh, but
Yeah.
there's a lot that you can speculate about with it. Um,
Well, so let me explain to you my reason behind why I think Bex has to die in these next 3
do that, and
episodes.
then we've got to move on to the next
I
topic.
I know, I know, but, this will be my closing thoughts. I did wanna get into Cinta's death a little bit. I'm gonna say that first and then close out my thoughts. Um, I think Cinta's death was amazing in the fact that it shows what being an idiot it looks like. Cinta's the one who
Sure.
dies on Gorman, and
Yeah.
Vel, I believe is her name, is the one who, like, they were, like, lovers, they were together, and, like, there's that whole story, like, the little bit of a thing of, like, "Oh, I care about you," like, whatever. I love the fact that
Yeah.
she died in such a stupid way because it shows why you need to be serious and why you can't just
Yeah.
go like, this is a very serious point in time, and it takes a very like their whole thing is no one has blasters, everyone follows their orders, and this proves why.
Sure. And honestly, I was really sad about that death because I really did like those 2 characters, and I liked both of their relationship. I liked seeing how it built over time and then seeing how they worked together
Yeah.
within the rebellion. And so when that happened, I literally went, it makes sense, but I'm really sad because I
Yeah.
wanted to see
No,
more of that.
I think it was a necessary death, and I think it was necessary for her to die in that way. Like, yes, she dies so unceremoniously, but I think that is the perfect way to represent how disorganized the rebellion is. It's to show why we need to take this seriously and why you can't go all out on your own. We need to act as a cohesive unit because if we don't, people are going to die.
Yeah.
But flashing back to my last and final thoughts, I heard, and again, this is all speculation, I don't know if this is confirmed yet, that the events of the last 3 episodes almost directly butt into the events of where we see Cassian starting. Like, I'm pretty sure from what I heard, it literally is like the end of this last 3 episodes of Andor is going to be what kicks off the events of Rogue One and where we see Andor in Rogue One. In Rogue One, Andor has moved on from Bix completely. Like, he forms another relationship in Rogue One. He would not have done that if Bix dies in the last 3 episodes. He would only move on like that if Bix dies and then he has a year or more to move on and move past that.
It depends on how you look at it because I don't see them as a lover relationship in Rogue One.
I
I
mean,
don't.
they kind of like I don't know. I kind of do. I mean, you have that whole scene where they die together in each other's arms on the beach.
That's not out of
Like,
okay, it's out of love, but
I
it's
thought
not
they
out of
did kiss. I thought they kissed.
nope.
I thought they did
Nope.
kiss.
Nope. I've never seen that relationship. I've never seen Jenna Erso and Cassian Andor as a lover relationship. I've seen it as a we are dying for the rebellion type of relationship. We are dying for the cause that we have set out to die for, and they're dying satisfied with what they're dying for, and the fact that they succeeded in their mission, the fact that Jen's avenged her father, the fact that Cassian is dying for the rebellion that he joined.
And I guess maybe Bix dying, I guess thinking about it like that, because I always saw it as more of a lovers type of relationship. But I guess if you put it in that context, it would make more sense for Bix to die at the last 3 episodes, because then it gives more of a reason for Andor to be satisfied with the fact that he dies, because he's completed his goal and has nothing to go back to. He recently lost Bix, has lost his will to live, is doing this one last mission for the rebellion and not coming back from it, so he can die and be with Bix. So I guess thinking about it like that, I guess I might lean, I don't want to say lean more towards your side, but I can understand. And if that's the way they go with it, I will not be dissatisfied with the direction that they take Andor's story and Face's story.